Hey there, I'm Permanent DM, the creator of the game All Mice Die, and today's topic is about broad versus deep storytelling, and how knowing the strengths and weaknesses of each type can help you improve your games. It's no secret that I'm a big fan of Wes March's as a playstyle, and I think in general terms, the core elements that make up the playstyle makes it more approachable and playable than basically every other form of playing TTRPGs. But the more common complaint that I've seen over the years when it comes to Wes March's is there is no story. This baffled me for years because in my time as both a player and a DM, the story was also the primary reason that we were playing. It was the focus of the game. Without the story and without the choices being made by the players, nothing could happen. You literally could not play the game until the players decided on what they were going to do to advance the story. Then, in 2025, I made a point of joining as many Wes March's communities as I could in an effort to see if I could salvage some love for 5th edition D&D. And I inadvertently discovered what I think was the cause of the there is no story. Games that were billed as Wes March's, but were instead purely we run from a randomly generated table and loot with combat machines built into it. If I joined some of these communities in 2025, I would expect there to be accusations of AI or actual use of large language models to generate some of the sessions. This is because, for many people, the idea of Wes March's was that they, as a DM, did not have to prep, plan, or contextualize anything. They could show up with a starting town and a handful of random tables and just have people go off into the wilderness. You encounter 1d6 swarms of psychic frogs. Roll for initiative. You lived and you got a diving helmet and 334 gold pieces. You moved to the next encounter area and there are 2d6 plague-touched wild dogs. Roll initiative. That for them was Wes March's. Listen, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but that was frustrating to me that so many people in those games, and many of these games had dozens or hundreds of players, they had that as their first and maybe only experiences with Wes March's play. I played 6 games with 6 different DMs on the server that I mentioned a minute ago, and only one of them ever paused to think, why? When a random encounter was rolled up, or even had a hook other than there is things outside of town, go get them. The point of telling you those examples is not to turn this into a D&D horror stories video, but instead it lets me see what other people were talking about. And that was key for me to be able to understand what a good example would be and why I think the Wes March's is a great way to tell a story when other people thought it was antithetical to the playstyle. In the 5-man band style of play, where you have the same cast of characters and players every week and the focus is on a single unified story arc, think basically any season of Critical Role, except maybe Campaign 4, we'll see. This style of storytelling excels at depth. You dig into a backstory and diving into the world and plunge its depths. From an outsider, you can follow a single thread and viewpoint through the world and know that the character in that story like the back of your hand. Contrast that to something like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where there is an overarching plot, sort of, but you don't follow Iron Man for 15 movies. You follow a character for a little while and then move on to somebody else in the world. You follow them and then to someone else. The focus on the storytelling is broad. It isn't on Marvel Cinematic, it's on universe. Which is better? Well, I'd say neither as far as stories are concerned, but they do have their own strengths and weaknesses, and knowing those is really helpful. Deep stories live or die based on how evocative their primary story is, but it can also be something that's really hard to catch up on if you missed it up here, and you kind of want to know what's going on down here. The world is important, but only in so much as it guides and informs the journey forward and downward. NPCs and non-player motivations can feel one-dimensional, and why are they here questions might be more clear, as those are there to serve the plot. PC motivations, likewise, tend to be front and center, which is great for the players and have those frustrating moments for when you have players that are a little bit more passive. These games and stories tend to focus on world-altering quests, or stories where the world's core elements are there to exist as a depth gauge for our protagonists. Players and viewers can get really attached to specific characters because they spend so much screen time and so much focus on that arc, and this narrow, deep slice of that character becomes the entire universe. Broad stories, by contrast, they live or die or how expansive the perspective of the world becomes. The characters are still important, but only in so much as they guide and inform how the world is entered and explored. When you have lots of PCs playing in the same setting, each with their own goals and motivations, the lines start to blur between that's an NPC and that's a PC doing stuff who I just haven't played with much or at all. Why are they here? Questions are rarely answered by because it suits the plot and we need it to get from A to B, because those don't tend to be how the stories need to be designed in order to function. They don't make sense for telling a broad story that way. Players and viewers will still very much get attached to their characters, but oftentimes they get attached to the universe and in more than any character that they're playing. Just ask any superhero fan about DCU versus MCU on whether they have opinions on the differences between those universes. You've got a couple hours, right? Both of these types of stories can be done well, and they can be done poorly. Assuming the goal is to tell a good story, a few random tables with no effort made to explain the outputs is going to be a massive uphill battle for telling a story regardless of that table, and regardless of whether you have the same people every week or it's completely different session to session. So which of them is right for you? Well, probably both. There is a reason we get spin-offs either expanding the universe of IPs or things that are digging deeper into following a single character. We, as people, want both types of stories. And personally, I think a good Wes Marches game does something that is hard to replicate in any other format in the TTRPG space, and that thing is worth experiencing. Being part of a world where we know the world doesn't pause when the main characters aren't on the stage, because we can see and hear about the triumphs and tragedies of the other members of the community, feels special. In some ways, it might feel more real. As a player, the world feels more alive, real, and reactive, as a person in the community built around the game gives you a bunch of ways to interact with things even if you aren't actually there. And, as an added bonus, you can listen to others and tell others what I did this week in D&D stories, and have the investment needed to make those stories fun instead of things that your friends have to endure. That's really all I have for now. Just go try it. I think you'll have fun. If you like what I'm doing here, like, subscribe, hit the bell button, and consider supporting me on Patreon if you want access to more cool stuff. My Wes Marches game, All Mice Die, is launching on Kickstarter soon, so if you want to hear about that, there's a link in the description below, and you can keep the conversation going by joining my Discord server. Because, at the end of the day, Wes Marches is all about community. Until next time, thanks for watching.